There's a difference between responding and repenting. I love that note. That was huge for us to consider when it comes to keeping the dead man dead. But now I want to go to that story that you told me about at the church. So you talked about triggers.
Yeah.
So he told me a little bit of story. He's going to share a little bit at a church where he said L Train made an appearance. And again, there was a scenario that triggered it where he was good to manage it, but something triggered it and then caused him to respond, and then there was some consequences of that. So talk a little bit about that.
All right. So we're at church. We're having regular service, and one of the dudes comes in where we're at. The church is located at. It's in I'm be honest, it's in a drug neighborhood.
Gotcha.
It's in a high violent neighborhood. It's literally right dead in the middle of gang territory. But when you're a church of power, you're not scared of that.
Right,
I just have to say that. You know, when you're a church of power, you're not scared of that. You can pick up scorpions and not get hit. But you can pick up snakes and not get bitten. But at the end of the day, church is going forth, and because I do speak to a lot of people on the streets. One of these young men that I did speak to, he was of Hebrew Israelite religion. Black people are Jews.
Right.
So he's very adamant on that. And in the course of his dialogue, he said, I would never go into one of them churches, quote unquote, a Christian church. This particular service, he comes in, he walks to the door. Now, mind you, he told me before, previous in our conversation, he would never come to this church. Now, me being a minister,
so now you're a red flag.
It's already, now my antennas are up.
Right.
But at the same time, I can't stop him out the door. I mean, I should have. Hindsight, hindsight is
right. That's a different thing.
Hindsight knows everything but warns no one. So it's like hindsight is one of those things. But hindsight, I should have kicked him out, but I didn't. I let him in because I don't know. God could have been working on him, Mike.
Right.
God could have been working on him.
What
I look like, Then he goes outside and tells everybody they kicked me out. They wouldn't even let me in the church. We didn't want that reputation, so because we got a good pastor, so we let the man in, and he behaved himself for a good 5 minutes. He reeked of marijuana. So, but everyone else was already heightened because they looking like, oh, here we go. Right. But at the same time, he was quiet. He behaved himself. Not a problem. The last preacher got up there and preached, and we're about to do offering. And during this time, he lifts his hands up and asks, "Hey, can I ask a question?"
So now we got disruption.
So now we have a disruption.
Right.
Because we still are we're accessible church to where we do have order, and order is set in the house, but because we are an accessible church and we're sensitive to quote unquote soul, this might be a pertinent question in this person's life.
So you had to give him a chance to
I had to give him a chance to say what he said. It didn't go right. He asked a crazy question. He said, "What color is Jesus?" So I'm like, "Oh, here we go on the Black Hebrew, back on the Black Hebrew trip now."
Yeah.
So we escort him outside. Try to share the gospel to him and try to talk to him on a biblical level. He didn't want to listen to us, so we tried to cut it off and say, "Hey, bro, we'll pray for you." He blasphemes. He said, "I don't want nothing to do with your God. Don't pray for me. I don't want your demons and all that stuff like that." So we like, okay, he's really buzzing now.
Yeah.
So now the senior pastor, she's telling for all the men, because mind you, normally when these type of things happen, it's normally just me outside dealing with the people that's on the church, that's outside, because everyone else has a job to do. My job on those days is to work the door. So that's something that I would normally go ahead and do. But this particular day, all the men come outside.
So you take him out of the offering, he was disrupted. You took him outside, and while you took him outside, the other men came with you.
Yeah, all the men.
So it's almost like he about to get jumped outside, outside in front of the church.
It looked like it's about to go down.
Yeah.
So senior pastor tells us to come inside. So I open up the door. The men start going in. At this time now, the dude grabs the door and opens the door up, right? So I'm looking. He's under me. He's under my armpit. And he starts talking, yelling in the church. Starts yelling, disrespecting all the women in the church. From the outside looking in, it looks like I'm getting mad because of what he's saying.
Gotcha.
But I'm actually not mad about what he's saying, even though I respect and love the women in the church and who he was talking to, because he said some crazy things.
Okay.
But once he started grabbing the door, that's when I kind of turned up on him. For those that don't know what turn up is, I actually got mad. I was getting mad. And
because he held the door.
Because he was holding the door.
So it is no longer just a verbal altercation, but now there's physical.
Now it's physical now because we're trying to remove ourselves from it.
Okay.
And now you at this time are trying to impede my progress to this door. So now I'm getting hot now. I done got mad now.
Right.
Because I done held it in all this time. And that's what we said. We're supposed to be spirit led, not emotionally driven.
Yeah.
But instead of me being spirit led, I'm now emotionally driven now.
Right.
Because you now hit a trigger now.
Right.
Because I've been trying to give you the gospel gospel. You've been disrespecting me, talking about I don't want your demons and all that stuff like that.
Right.
You now disrespected our senior pastor and the women in the church. So you got 2 strikes against you. Now you holding this door. Okay, it's strike 3. It's about to go down now. And I look at him, and I look at him dead in his face, and I told him, now you need to go now. Now L Train comes in because now normally what we do, physically opposing now, to where now I'm breaking knuckles now. I'm doing like this now. I got my hands like now, like look, I'm done with you talking now.
Right.
We done talking. Now what you want to do?
Right.
So now mind you, this is a new ministry that I've been in. I've been in there for a few months.
Okay.
They only know me as minister. They don't know about L Train. So every single time I preach and I let them a little bit more, they're like, wow, we didn't know all that. We just thought you're so nice. You're so nice.
Right.
So the fact that they saw me in that light, and it didn't go over well with the church, to be honest.
Okay.
It didn't go over well with the church, especially because this is where, quote unquote, being a leader now it comes into play. Sure. Because with me turning up, quote unquote, one of the deacons in our church started to turn up. Mind you.
See, this was interesting because it started with him after the guy was gone. Whatever was on Lamont basically
went off of me and went right on to one of the deacons in the church. Mind you, our church, the men are older men. These are not young men. I'm one of the youngest men in the church.
Wow.
So these are not young men.
Right.
These are not young, off the handle, 19, 17-year-old men that you done disrespected their mama and they want to go out there and fight. Yeah. No, these are grown men.
Yeah.
But the fact that God is the way that God set it up, He has set him up for, as far as to give me a place of influence in the church. So when I see myself, quote unquote, turning up, and now my deacon is going there acting crazy, that's what made me calm down. Because I was mad.
You realize,
mind you, all this happened in about 7 seconds.
For sure.
Because once I told him, like, before I could finish my quote unquote my tirade, because once I told him, I was about to say, look, man, you about to make me go ahead. Right. Because I was about to tell him, like, you about to make me turn the train on you. Right. And you don't want train to make a guest appearance. But before I can get it out my mouth, I literally saw the spirit that whatever was on me jumps and hits my deacon. Yeah. And now deacon, he outside.
Get it out.
He trying to get outside now. Literally, his wife, everybody got to hold him back because he trying to go out there and what's the name?
For sure.
Because here's the thing, it was a personal attack on him because the people that he was talking to, the people that were disrespecting, was his family members. So I can understand that, and I'm justified in my head like, well, he was getting mad because of his parent. That was his that's his family. He's supposed to get mad.
Right.
But God had to literally check me and let me know that no, you opened that up because before you did what you did, all the men were in the church already.
Wow.
He was just holding the door once you got there.
Right.
So literally, if all you had to do was just push him, close the door, not say a word to him. So now you have to be conscious of what you do now. Because you have people following you don't even know that you're following them. He never sat here.
Did all this go through your mind during that time, or now you're?
All of it was going through at that time. That's what made me calm down several times.
Because you're a man of influence.
And actually allowed me to quote unquote to take rebuke because I got rebuked on the spot.
Okay.
Shout out to the women of God. Because we, like I said before, we're a spirit and in truth, and where you act up at. I've been taught by a good mama. Wow. My mama told me is where you act up at. That's where I'm gonna act up at. I act a fool, and I got checked on the spot.
Wow.
So and you being an elder, you being a minister, or quote unquote, or something like that, you're supposed to have that happen. Right. So that everyone knows, the congregation knows, that's not acceptable.
That's good.
And truth be told, I couldn't get mad at that. I couldn't get mad at that, even though I did.
Right.
I couldn't get mad at my maturity side of me. Is like, I couldn't get mad at that because they were supposed to do that. Because of the position that you're in, when you act a fool, you're supposed to get that out there. So that the people have got to know that this is not acceptable for you, let alone the preacher.
So you're telling at that moment it was valuable for you to get rebuked?
Absolutely. It was so valuable.
Wow.
Because it was valuable to my growth. Because
so if they didn't say anything, you think they would have stagnated you?
To the 10th power, because I'd have thought I've been in the right. I thought I've been right.
How many people in church neglect rebuke because we don't want to be put out on the blast, but then we stagnate our spiritual maturity or growth in the midst of a turn up?
Yeah.
Right?
Because at the end of the day, if I had not got rebuked on the spot and felt that godly repentance, if I didn't feel that godly sorrow, I would have never repented.
Wow.
Because I would have been like, well, you know what? I had to do what I had to do. And now every time I go into church, I'm like, yeah, if it go down,
they go down.
L Train now has a foothold now.
Right.
Now L Train is not rebuked out the church now. L Train got a place to now
So
set up.
that's your opportunity to keep that old self dead.
Yeah, you know, because without, quote unquote, if they didn't rebuke it at that moment, he would have literally set root right there. L Train literally would have had a place in the church now, because now that spirit that I was walking in now has a place in the church now, because no one checked it. Because no one checked it. So now whenever L Train turn up, they know that that's just a part of Lamont. When truth be told, that's a dead part of Lamont that should have been dead. But the fact that we had somebody that was a watcher and sensitive in the spirit and was literally watching out for not for my feelings, because had she had, quote unquote, let's say a respect, if she was a respectable person and she coached, because she loved me, she, you know, one of my sisters in the church, you know what I'm saying, one of my biggest influences in the church. But had she been a respectable person and spared my feelings, everybody would have been, quote unquote, it's okay. Deacon wouldn't have felt bad, because why? No one said anything. He turned up, nobody said nothing to him either. So now this is acceptable in the house of God. But the Bible says to anger, but sin not. So it wasn't, the rebuke didn't come because I, quote unquote, got mad. The rebuke got because she knew that wasn't a godly anger that was coming out. That was worldly L Train, old Lamont about to go ahead and do some crazy things. And I thank God for the truth, because when the truth literally makes you free. And now it makes me free to where it's like, wait a minute, I know that when I'm in the house of God, and not just, quote unquote, in church, but everywhere, you know that, wait a minute, I can't allow this old man to make guest appearances. He can't be there every day. So I definitely for sure can't allow him to make guest appearances. You literally got to stay off. You can't be a part of this script. Yeah, you were part of my story beforehand, but you can't make no guest appearances. Not in this episode.
I like that.
You're not a part of this episode. And trust be told, he wants to be a part of the story every day. Every day. He does not want to get cut off the script. You do not. He wants to make,
especially when he used to be the main character.
Especially when I'm the main character. How you gonna downsize me?
When I'm the one who was running.
How you gonna downsize my life?
The story was named after me.
This was about me. This is all about me.
Now you got God. You got
God. Take me out, and that's how your flesh feels. Your flesh wants to be included in everything. The flesh want to be included in everything. Okay, you in church
because he was involved in everything.
Exactly. So he like, wait a minute. So you just gonna leave me out here, or you gonna crucify me? That's how you feel. And that's where you literally have to look at it as so that this thing, the flesh is not your friend. And it's not just the quote-unquote flesh that's attached to your bones. It's your carnal mind. The carnal mind is an enemy to God. He does not agree with God on nothing. Literally, you need to know that. Your carnal mind is in complete opposition to God. Meaning that if God wants you to fast, carnal wants you to eat. Like he wants you to eat and go to home to... Mind you, and it's going to literally, that's why I said make no provisions for the flesh. Because here's the thing, the day that you want to fast, that's going to be the day the coupon book going to come.
Y'all know about it. Yes, sir.
You're going to see Carl's Jr.
They will send it, Loco coupons 2 for free. You got to kill me on this day, and it expires today too?
You're going to see
you don't see it expires?
It's going to be crazy. People going to offer you all kind of good food. People ain't never asked you to go to dinner, want to invite you to dinner, and it's like literally he's setting up provisions for you to make provisions for him, because it's like literally for even if quote unquote you want to live right and you don't want to quote unquote you just got married, all right, provision of the flesh. You so used to being a womanizer, now you have different opportunities. Now women that didn't say nothing to you on the job ever, now that you done got saved and you got married or something like that, now she want to throw it at you. Because why? They want to make provisions for those things.
That carnal mind.
And that's that carnal mind that is not your friend. Your flesh ain't your friend.